So good morning, everybody. I'm Diaca Melendez. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services in Aldine ISD. And so it is our pleasure today to talk to you all as colleagues in a very transparent and realistic way about how we've been able to take a very large urban district located in Houston and increase our average daily attendance by over 1% the first year, and then we're on our way to another 0.5% this year, which is the equivalent of about $6 million back in funding for our state. And so we're going to talk to you today about some of the things that we've put in place, how we utilize RaaWee, but more importantly, how we have been able to make connections at the campus level that transfers over to the student level and to get the kids to actually come to school, because that's why you're here today, is to figure out how do I get them to actually come to school. So you can go ahead and transition, Mr. Krampitan. So in Aldine, as I'm sure you do in most of your districts, you have strategic priorities. I'm not going to read these to you, but I will tell you that we recently redid our strategic plan, and the very first component of that is students first. So, and it's actually even in the center of our strategic plan, because quite honestly, the rest of those things, they don't even matter if you're not putting students first. So they are front and center of what we do in Aldine, and that is how we approach everything that we do as it relates to attendance. It is about kids. We move past adult feelings and we make it about our kids. So we also have superintendent constraints, and I think that this is a huge factor in helping us push the needle forward. So in Aldine ISD, our superintendent reports, of course, to the Board of Trustees, and part of that process, she has constraints. She has things that she must not allow to not happen as a superintendent. So when attendance is tied into the superintendent's constraints, or it's tied into your board goals or your district goals, then that means every stakeholder in your district understands that this is something that is not an option, that this is something that must happen. So there's definitely some feedback and advice I'd give anybody watching. It doesn't need to be a constraint for the superintendent, but this goal, whatever it is for you in attendance, it cannot sit in isolation in your department or in your team. It has to be something that is from the top down and is communicated as an expectation. So for us in our district, you'll see here that in the center constraint 2 is that the superintendent shall not operate without actively monitoring, working to eliminate the loss of instructional time. So for us in particular, we remember a very large, high mobility, economically disadvantaged school district in Houston. We have just shy of 60,000 students. And so you can imagine after COVID, the amount of chronic absenteeism that we've had here in our district. And so the goal is to reduce it from 26.3%, which is 1 out of 4 kids, y'all. That's a lot. To 16% in 2028, 2029. Now, what you can't see here is the year before, our chronic absenteeism rate was 33.3. So we were able to reduce it by 7% in 1 school year. And that is going to be what you're going to hear today from us on how we use RaaWee and the systems that we put in place to reduce that chronic absenteeism and then also raise our average daily attendance. And then this is just it repeated. And so I will hand it over to Mr. Lindeman, who will tell you how we got here.
All right. Good morning, everybody. So we, of course, like Ms. Melendez said, we had a large decline in attendance, and the thing is that we had a large system that people didn't have attendance on the on the front of their mind, and we didn't have roles and responsibilities of who was doing what. So I think that where we started really slow on purpose, and it has been the best thing I think that we've done. We started just defining, because you know how every school that you work with, they all define their own roles and kind of how they fit in, and they're kind of like isolated pieces out there. So what we did was, this is what we need from everybody, and we clearly defined it, and we took time to go slow so that now we're going fast, and it's our graph of our data is all like this. It's not up and down. It is really consistent, and we're improving things. And you know, it's even from our youngest children on, attendance was an issue. So you can go ahead, Paul. And so this is where we really thought, what does and believe me that the most difficult one has been the school administrators. Don't tell them I told you that, but that is true. Is really getting them to understand that every assistant principal in the district has a role in attendance. And before they might have had an assistant principal who was over attendance, and then the rest of them kind of didn't own attendance the way that we need them to. So we have used RaaWee to make sure that the attendance clerks are doing what they need to do and making phone calls and doing the letters and all that. And the registrars are keeping track of kids as they leave our district, and what role is the district level people having. And it has been the most valuable thing that we have done is to take time and clearly define what each person's role is. But not only that, Miss Melendez and our team meets weekly we have RaaWee. The tool, how RaaWee helps us is it's a tool that we can use to monitor whether attendance contracts are getting done or whether they're monitoring their attendance contracts. So that's been very helpful. Go ahead, Paul. And so, like Ms. Melendez said earlier, we had a 1% goal last year. We ended at 1.4%. And then this year, our goal is 0.5% as a district. And so we've made significant progress. And before January, we were almost at another 1%. But I know a lot of you, like us, have had since January some students who maybe not coming to school as much. We've kind of rebounded from that, but we definitely hit a little snag in January. Okay, go ahead, Paul. You're on.
Yes. So as Ms. Melendez and Mr. Lindeman did explain, right? We had to work, we had to move slow, we had to present this to the school in a format where how is the work that we are working on gonna benefit them? And honestly, it's gonna be very, very difficult for anybody to argue that being in school is what's best for kids. So we have to start with a premise for everyone first. And like what Ms. Melendez did say, is that we have the backing of the superintendent that this is a priority. So it's an easier sell than you may be experiencing in different places where you guys are at. Now, that being said, what we had to clearly define roles, like what Mr. Lindeman did say. We had to ensure that those roles that were defined by the committee, by the group, is being adhered to. And that's where one of the biggest things where RaaWee has helped us out with is being able to identify where the spots are that need some support. And, you know, I will argue that that's what technology will help you with if you utilize it the right way, is allow you to drill deeper where you normally, historically, without technology, you would have just been, it's not impossible, but it would have been so much resources allotted to it that most people don't do it. So one of the many things that we were doing, or we are doing, to monitor our attendance is we obviously what we have is applied pressure and accountability, right? The accountability piece for administrators, for attendance clerks, for anybody that is involved in helping the students be successful, there has to be an accountability, and you don't start accountability without proper support and without proper roles. So that's why it's super important. And we were also very transparent with the district, with the campuses. We don't hide information. Everybody gets to see the information, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And then it's from the lens of, it's not a got you moment. It's more of, how can we support you? So that's the route that we as a district decided to go with in terms of supporting our campuses. And of course, you cannot grow and you cannot keep improving if you're not continuously trying to improve and try to find ways to tweak the system. Because RaaWee is great, but and Mr. Graham and the team at RaaWee will tell you, and there was one thing that's great about RaaWee is that they're very, very responsive to the requests and the feedback that we give them in real time. So that's always a big piece of it. So how do we go about doing that? On top of what RaaWee gives is every week, what Mr. Lindeman alluded to earlier, that we have Ms. Melendez, myself, and Mr. Lindeman do meet every week. And we go over, this is a sample of what we have. And we compile this. And are you guys able to see this? Give me a thumbs up if you're able to see this. Okay, so this is just an example of what we have. And imagine there's 83 schools in here. We just kind of cut this. What we have is the difference of where they were last year from this point to this point, and to currently from the time that school started for us till where we ended, rough about the same number of days uh, from last year. We wanted to do that uh, because we're trying to compare apples to apples and not necessarily where we're currently at now compared to where you were at the end of the school year last year. Because we do know that sometimes there's a dip, there's an increase, and it does not give you a true picture of where you currently are at that moment. So every week, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, like clockwork, this goes out. Ms. Melinda sends this out. We vet it out earlier than that. And she sends it out to the principals, and then the principals get information for this. Assistant superintendents get this. And then from there, Mr. Lindeman sends it to all the assistant principals in the district. So they all see this. What we added this year was the difference, the increase or decrease from where they were last week. Because as I previously explained to our team members, is that this is a historical information that you have right here, but this is how you are currently doing and your trend is. So if you notice that this particular school, yes, they might be behind from where they were last year at this time, but you can see that strategies, that interventions they're working on right now could potentially be showing some gains because they're in the green on the previous week that they have ADA on. And if you stack that up every week, this comes out every week. So for now, we're at week 29 now. So, the campuses can see the trend that they're doing. And by the way, this is also in RaaWee. You can look at this in RaaWee too. We just put it in a format where we have everyone inside, because not every campus will have access to everybody else. So that's one thing that we have that we offer as a support to our campuses. And this is also one spot that we use when we decide how we best support a specific campus. For example, I'm not saying that this is a campus, but let's just say over the course of 5 weeks, we see that there's been a consistent red on this column right here, the change in ADA comparison from last week. That will tell us that, wait a minute, this campus has been declining in the last 4 weeks. My team, our DRS, our dropout recovery specialist, myself, we get together and say, hey, let's reach out to this campus. How can we support them? Do they need some help on their, let's look at their attendance contracts. Let's look at their phone calls. Where are we on those? And we just give those support to them. And it's never about, hey, you're not doing the work. It's how can we help you? It looks like you're falling behind. And that's one thing Ms. Melendez and Mr. Lim have been great at, is we're doing all the support for campuses in a non-punitive way. So that way we can get more buy-in from our constituents. So that is, how do I close this one? So if I close this one. So then when you have, that's one piece, right? Then obviously the RaaWee intervention is there. What this is again, a snippet of the campuses that we have and the number of phone calls outstanding for that week for them. So perfect attendant, perfect example would be this campus is great, and they're meaning they don't have any outstanding phone calls for that week. And then they may not have 9 unmarked, not completed contracts. So we send this thing out to everybody every Monday. So the principals are aware, wait a minute, my campus is not doing what they're supposed to. I have a person that's supposed to be over this. Let me check with them and where we're at. So it's just an awareness piece for the campuses with a more detailed support. Ms. Melendez or Ms. Lindeman, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yes, that just that, when we go back to the roles and responsibilities, like the phone calls, we've clearly told the attendance clerks that you need to do the daily phone calls. And we don't just tell people, but we have a way to monitor it. And we've told the assistant principals what, we've explained and taught them and showed them and supported them. But we also have a way of saying, well, wait a minute, something's not happening here, or you're not doing. And so when we look at this every week, it's really valuable information.
Hey, Paul and Todd, we have a quick question from a viewer, from Emilio Ortega. Does the tool allow you to segment classify students in order to better intervene or support students? For example, flagging students with unverified absences compared to students with excused absences are students who have multiple semester truant.
So, hold on, give me a second.
We lost you
am
for
I-
a second.
am I
There you go.
speaking? So let me clarify, Mr. Graham, is he asking, do we know whether is this information excused or unexcused absence? Is that one of the questions?
He said, I mean the high percentage of absences unverified or excused.
So this information that we share with the campuses are all what RaaWee gives us, which is the trigger points for our interventions, right? Which means therefore it's the unexcused absences. Yeah, but to answer his questions, we also have we use Decision Ed, and I'm learning to work with Salim and Assad right now, how to utilize the excused absences also in RaaWee to identify exactly that. Is that what about those that are part of, they keep getting excused absences, so therefore they technically are still going to be truant at the end, but they're not being hit by RaaWee. So we do a combination of different, for this point, for lack of a better word, Emilio, is that we're utilizing two systems right now to achieve that. But yes, we do have that. Yeah. Did that answer the question?
I believe so. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
And and so with this, right, and then obviously the one that RaaWee doesn't have for us, but we're working on our own, is we also monitor those students that are leaving the district, that are, when the parent says, hey, I want to go move to Timbuktu, Texas, right, and then they have to leave. We also track those kids because many times they disappear, and that's how they become dropouts for us the next year. So we have to ensure we're monitoring those, because we're not only addressing truancy within our area, we're also addressing dropout rates and the 98. If you're familiar with it, the 98. So this is also how we're doing it. It's like an overall encompassing system that we're running, right? But again, we use data. We don't use feelings. And Ms. Melendez, myself, and Mr. Limit always say, okay, let's talk about this. And we have some feelings. And we always go back to, what does the data say? Let's pull RaaWee, let's pull Decision Ed, let's pull this, and what is information we have for those. And we just basically, like what Ms. Melendez did allude to the very beginning of this, is that by doing all this, right, the campuses, because they are aware that there is some accountability, they are aware that they're seeing some benefits. It's changing the awareness and culture of the school. It really does. From what Mr. Lindeman said, when nobody really talked about attendance before, trust me, you can walk to 80 campuses in Aldine right now, and everyone will tell you what RaaWee looks like, where they can find it, what attendance looks like, and how to do all these things, because we have embedded that as part of the process that they do on a daily basis. So, and like everybody
Hey, Paul,
has access to their own
before you
RaaWee
move
here.
on, can you just
Yes?
quickly share the campus visits and support part of this?
Yes. So
why do you guys do that really
the campus
quick?
visits and support. So once we have the weekly ADA reports and our RaaWee intervention, and then really those two, right? And then their goals. We do what we have, we tier the campuses. We have a campus tiering formula that we use built in with us, that we have decided, which campuses are being tiered. And then once we have that, then we can determine who are those that need more focus and more support. And we actually schedule a meeting with them and help them target even a deeper dive on those kids. And that, Amelia, that may answer your question. We go to the campuses and actually say, these are the group of kids that are falling into this category right now. We know you can't handle all of these kids because there might be 200 of them, but let's hammer down on focus on this group, and let's monitor them weekly. And I meet with them every week to do a follow-up, just to talk about how are they doing with the interventions they're working on. And we celebrate, like what we always say is that Ms. Melendez would, with the end of the meeting all the time, is that, hey, send us a list of $200 worth of goodies you guys want to use as a positive reinforcement for your kiddos that you guys will target to get your grades up. And that will be on the next slide, I believe. What are the things that we use in order to celebrate our successes?
So Paul, we have a great question, Paul and Todd, from Siobhan Leeds. In regard to contacting families about attendance, you mentioned phone calls. But what about families that don't have a phone? Are there any other methods you use for certain families?
Yes.
Yes. So the way we obviously we think of it this way, we're at 60,000, near 60,000. We can't get to everyone, right? With the sheer numbers. So phone calls are our first filter. Okay, think of it as a filter. And then if we are not successful with that filter, we do our DRS has, as long as the campuses have put in all the proper steps that they are taking, which we have defined for them, what those are, they have the ability to do a home visit request for our DRS. We have, our district is blessed with 5 DRS, dropout recovery specialists, that deals with absences and attendance and truancy and all the other things, is that they actually request to us, I've done X, Y, and Z. Here's my evidence. I've done X, Y, and Z. I need you guys to visit this group, this kiddo, because I'm kind of concerned they haven't been here. So we do have that, and they do a home visit. But lately, and I'm glad that, so our system asks us, the way it does is, and RaaWee also does a pretty good job of it. It'll tell you whether it's a cell phone or a landline, which I haven't seen any landline, to be honest with you, lately. It's always been a cell phone. And so when they can't get a hold of them, yes, we do a home visit for them. And that home visit goes 2 ways, right? Sometimes when they do a home visit on their known address, then we find out that the student has already moved. They moved out of, a neighbor will tell us they already moved back to Honduras. They already moved back to, they moved to a different state. So then we can follow up and take a different action on how we can go about that piece. And we have also part of our system that we built on our office, is that how do we address that group when it becomes that? So we do have those. Does that answer, Mr. Graham?
And text
I believe
messages
so.
have helped too,
Yeah,
phone
there's
calls, sometimes not reaching them by phone, like they might not answer our call. So we can do a text message, and that's proven about 35% success rate. So it lowers the numbers.
awesome. We have 2 other great questions. The first question is, would you please repeat the comment about the $200 incentives? I missed it, from Heidi Durst.
$200.
So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, Miss Melendez can speak to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes what will happen is that we'll partner with the campus that's struggling. And then I'll utilize funds out of my budget, not $200. I don't know where Mr. Crampton got $200 from. I guess he was feeling very generous in his soul. But I will reach out to the campus and I will tell them, hey, let's come up with an idea for how we're going to target a very specific group of students that we're going to focus on attendance maybe for the next 3 to 4 weeks. And usually what we do is we try to identify students within a certain threshold. So say, for example, kids who have somewhere between 65% attendance and 75% attendance. It may be that we target that group for those 3 to 4 weeks. And so I will sponsor for the campus anywhere from $50 to $100, where they can create a Sam's Club cart or as Amazon cart where they can buy treats and snacks, little things that they can give to the kids. I don't do that often. So definitely if you're a district that is hard pressed for funding, I don't want to make it seem like that I'm doing that every week. That's usually when we've identified a campus that's probably tier 3. And we're trying to figure out how to put an incentive plan in place. And that's something that my office works with.
So
Go ahead, Graham.
Go ahead, Mr. Lindeman. That's all right.
I was going to say also, like, Paul will make fun of me, but I'm a visual person. So when we look at targeting these supports for the campus, we get a lot of people who get stuck in the red, right? The red students are so difficult. We all have them, and we're always going to have them. And we have to go to their homes, and we have to do that, and we have to deal with all that. But where we found the most success in moving our ADA percentage is when we focus on that yellow group. Because to be honest, it's just out of whack. The green group should be much higher, and our yellow group was like if you have a triangle, like that PBS or whatever, you have the triangle and you have that top red, you all have that. Then the middle is the yellow, and then the bottom is the green, which should be like 80% of your school. Well, when the yellow is big, your percentage is messed up. When we've targeted support for campuses and we've identified students, we go to that yellow group and we really put interventions in there and get those kids who are like supposed to be green going back to green, maybe with a phone call to a parent or a parent conference or contract or whatever it is. We found a lot of success doing that. So
Awesome,
And
awesome.
piggybacking, I love what Mr. Lemon did say about that. And yes, I do make fun of him about that triangle that is always, but in all honesty, it does work, right? If you're trying to move your numbers, is that from an emotional perspective, we do get that all the time. There's like, I'm sick and tired of, addressing the same group of kids. I'm putting in 90% of my time on the 5% that I'm getting like maybe a 0.5% results with, as opposed to focusing on the 30-40%, and then you put your time there, you're getting more bang for your buck. So that's actually a very good point Mr. Lindeman did say, is that utilize your priorities, reprioritization of your graph, so to speak. That's probably a better way of addressing that.
The second question we have is very simple. Would you share your tiering formula from Chanel Cole? So maybe we can send that out at the end. Maybe you can share it with Janie and we can send that out as well. So that'd be great.
Yes. So yeah, it's a little bit, yes. So I can do that. Reach out to me. We can talk it through how we came up with that. Yes,
put your email in the chat if you don't mind, Paul, for them to be able to reach out to you, and make sure you click everyone. So that's all for the questions. Just please
Tiering, just to piggyback off that one, tiering campuses, I think, has been one of another one of our really effective strategies. We give support throughout the year. We re-tier them throughout the year, and campuses know what tier they're on, and we want everybody to be a tier 1. So if they're tier 2, we're giving support. Paul's meeting with them every week. He meets with those campuses virtually and supports them so on the growth path. And tier 3 campuses have other supports built in that are a little bit more, supportive, let's say.
So that's the RaaWee piece. We just want, that was the, you see that, Mr. Brown and Mr. Wilson? That's a shameless plug in yours when we were doing the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what we had to put in there. So, then remember earlier we did say, what are the strategies we did, right? We incentivize, Ms. Melendez can speak to this. This may have been where my mind was going through with the $200 one, the incentivizing attendance, friendly campus competitions. And, once you have a culture of attendance in your campus, they start becoming this, 5th graders are competing against 4th graders. And that's where the incentives and rewards come in. And like I said all the time, it does not always have to be monetary. It does not always have to be food. You'll be surprised, even at a 9th grade campus. And I had one of the attendance coordinators reach out to me and say, Mr. Carranza, this is crazy. I said, what's crazy? He said, I got students high-fiving me in the hallway because they said, you called my mom yesterday because, like you called my parents letting them know something positive. And he forgot, he didn't call. He did an automated positive for those who increased their ADA for the week. I, suggested to them, hey, do an auto blast, a phone blast for this. Thank you for, making sure your kiddos in school doing great for the last week. And those things have helped them out. It's these little things that we do that's not always the negative, but something that is positive for the kids that they're working on. And Ms. Melendez, do you want to talk a little bit about incentivizing attendance on our ILTs?
Yeah, so what we do is each month we have a principals meeting. And what we've done is at the beginning of the year, I was able, well, actually 2 years, last year, I was able to convince the chief financial officer to set aside a small pool of money. It's about $18,000 for the whole year. And so remember, Aldine is a very large school district. So this is a very small amount of money for attendance. And so what we do each month in our principal meeting is, as Mr. Crampitan showed you earlier, there is a report that goes out every week. So there is no way you are a principal in Aldine ISD and you don't know what your current average daily attendance is, and you don't know where you were this time last year, and you don't know where you were this time last week. That is very clearly indicated on your report. And so with that being said, then we look at by feeder pattern, which campus in the feeder pattern has improved the most over this time last year. And so that campus is awarded $250 at the principal's meeting. And then any campus that has actually hit the overall goal for the district. So for example, last year, the goal was to increase average daily attendance for the whole district by 1%. So any campus during that month that increased by more than 1%, they went into a drawing. So we didn't give every campus that increased 1%, $250, but then we randomly selected a campus out of there so that they could also win $250. So we give away about $700, $750 a month in this attendance incentive. And it really, really works very well because they're able to take that money and then do celebrations on their campus. It goes back into the principal's discretionary fund. And more importantly, they really just like it for bragging rights to see. But it puts people on blast too. And one of the common themes you'll hear us say over and over and over again is we're going to make information very clear and very transparent. And then by making things very clear and transparent, then we're going to offer you the support in order to be able to execute your job as an administrator. And then from there, we're going to hold you accountable. So it's a 3-tiered approach. It's being very consistent in having systems in place, giving you the support that you need when we don't see things going the way that they need to be, celebrating what needs to be celebrated when we do see things going the way they need to be going, and then offering that accountability. And I believe that that has made all of the difference and why we're able to move our ADA so fast and so quick.
And if our focus, our growth has been what Ms. Melinda said, $6 million we've brought back to the district. So if we're using a little bit of money for incentives, it's going an awful long way. So
yeah, they're going to give you 20. If you give your district back $6 million, they will give you back $18,000.
So and then, but like what we said, right? There are, and we have to be pragmatic and clear about this. It's not just about daisies and roses either, right? We do celebrate with those that we celebrate. However, we also are prepared to go there if we have to go there. And there means, we have to take you to court, we will take you to court. That is always what we always say, that is our option of last resort. We want to work with parents, we want to work with the students, and we don't just go all the way out to the courts either. We're fortunate here in Harris County that Triad is part of our offering that we have here that we're utilizing, that if they meet a certain threshold, we recommend it to Triad. Triad, in case you don't know, that if you're in Harris County, you should know what Triad is. If you're not, research it out. If you know what offers they've got. So what it basically does is there's another entity that comes in and offers support to these students and parents, and it could run from Saturday school classroom attendance classes. They do a lot of gambit of information that they've got. And then if they get into that piece, then what we do is we work with them. And then we'll work through them and allow them to come back and get better attendance. If they don't, then Triad will normally say, you can go in and file truancy for this kid because their parents don't want to work with us. Or sometimes Triad doesn't work. They take it and Triad doesn't work out for them. And then if we need to, we go ahead and file for a truancy case for those group of students that we have. We don't take pride in that. We want to work with our kids, but we, like what Ms. Melinda said, it's part of the culture establishment that we will go there if you really push us to go there. And I think she has a story to tell you about something that she. What was that, Ms. Melendez? When they didn't know who you were and they were talking, the parent was talking.
Yeah, this was at the beginning of the year when we were starting to push for court, and I was just in an office. They didn't know what my role was, and the mom was trying to explain the unexcused absences to the attendance clerk, and she was getting a little exasperated, and she was like, "'Cause y'all sending people to court." So we want to make sure that that's our last resort. But and quite honestly, it's not like the court is throwing these $100 fines or putting parents in jail. It's really just more the inconvenience of them having to go to court that is really the deterrent.
I mean, yes, so that's really it. And so we have a proactive, data-driven, we focus on the community, we help out, we work through it, and it's just been a positive shift. And if you forget, like what I keep referring to what, because I steal ideas, Ms. Melendez's and Mr. Lindeman's ideas, is that if you get past the numbers, right, the $6 million, the this, the that, it's just an opportunity for kids to be in school. I always say, if they're not in school, you don't know where they're at. They could potentially land in jail because they're not in school. It's just a lot of different things that could potentially happen. At least if they're in school, you know where they're at. and they're learning. You can't, as a math teacher before, I was a darn good math teacher, but I can't make a student pass the standardized test or pass the class if they're never in school. So we start there and we focus our efforts on that, and we try to make sure that they stay in school, but we try to get them to school first, and so that we can educate them.
I think also
So-
one thing we talked about was like attendance contracts where RaaWee comes in and we monitor, so we know how many assistant principals have not done their contracts. But the most important thing is because we have principals that say, well, I give a piece of paper, I have a student sign it and have a parent sign it, and it does nothing. And I always say, like, you're absolutely right. If you just give a piece of paper and you only do a contract, all of you out there that work on attendance know that's not effective. What I really like about this system and what we're doing and holding people accountable to is that, yeah, you can give them a contract, but then you have to do the monitoring piece. If you do that really well, then you're going to have kids who are knowing those are the yellow kids that you wake up and you say, I'm monitoring you and I'm keeping track of you and I'm calling your parents and I'm emailing them and every week I'm checking in with you. Those kids go back to green when you shake their world up a little bit. And that's where the monitoring is effective.
And that is, Mr. Lim is right. And funny story with that was that I was talking to Assad and Salim before about that. I said, man, won't it be nice if we can find out if how many kids have been absent, once they're absent. And they say, we have that already. It's here. I was like, great, RaaWee already has that, feature. So we just utilize that. It's the attendance contract monitoring piece for you guys. And so it's there already. Again, it's there for you to utilize if you're not familiar with it yet or you haven't seen it. Again, this is just what we had, because remember, this is a presentation from the achievements we had, and we don't like to brag about it, but we do show it, so that way hopefully as a place where people can see that it's possible, it can be done. It's a lot of work, but if you go from the lens of it's what's best for the kids, then it's easier to lift a heavier lift if you look at it from that lens. Ms. Melendez?
Yes. So I'm definitely not going to read this to you all, but I do want to kind of just highlight some things, because I'm assuming that most of you are probably district administrators or leading these efforts on your district. And whenever I attend a professional development, I want to hear, okay, cool, what did you do? But like really what worked? Like what was it that really, really got the needle moving? And so I will say off top that utilizing RaaWee, there's no way we would have the manpower to be expecting an attendance clerk to be sitting in the office running a report every time a kid gets to 3 absences and then 6 absences and then 9 absences and then keeping all of that up manually. And so having RaaWee definitely was a game changer, because it just automates things. In our district, if you get 3 absences, you're automatically getting a letter. When you hit 6 absences in elementary school, you're going on an attendance contract. When you hit 9 in secondary, you're going on an attendance contract. So what it does is it allows us to freeze up the time to be having the conversations with students, not running reports. One of the things also too is just that weekly email. That email that I send out at 8 o'clock on Monday morning that has the weekly ADA, it's there. Everyone in the entire district sees it. So it's not like it just goes to the principals, it goes to the assistant principals, it goes to the assistant supes, the chiefs, the superintendent. So everybody knows at all times where they stand. And then in addition to that, and I can't emphasize this enough, I know we're talking about attendance like it's quantitative, but this is really about kids. At the end of the day, everything that we do is about students. And I'm super glad that ADA's gone up. I'm super glad that we've been able to recover $6 million. But honestly, I don't care. What I care about is that there are kids who, prior to us putting these systems in place, would have been at home. There are kids who would have decided, and parents that would have decided, well, I'm just not going to send my kid to school. And we know that the more absent the kids are, the more that impacts their learning, that impacts their social skills. And so it makes a huge difference when a kid is there 78% of the time instead of 42% of the time. So I just want to also know that there is no magic bullet. And we don't try to get parents to go from my kid's here 53% of the time to being there 100% of the time. That is a heavy ask. But if you're there 53% of the time, can I get you to get here maybe 75% of the time for the next month? So we make it incremental, we make it small, but in a system our size, those little incremental steps, they lead to that overall push for average daily attendance. And then the celebrations. It does not take a lot of money to celebrate, as Mr. Crampton and Mr. Lindeman said. Just being acknowledged, especially at the elementary level. You know, we've put some things like the attendance and pancakes with principal, and these are all things that the campuses do. We don't tell them how they have to celebrate, but just I think that sometimes with attendance, we have a tendency to celebrate the kids with perfect attendance. They're coming anyway, y'all. But if a kid is there at 65% of the time, that kid gets to 80%, that kid needs to be celebrated because that kid is improving. There's growth. And then working with our dropout recovery specialists to do those home visits. It's impossible for you to be a student in Aldine ISD and not be at school for more than 3 days before someone is communicating with you or attempting to communicate with you. There is no way you could be absent 10 days in our district and someone hasn't said, where is Diaka? And I always emphasize and end with this. If you as a campus administrator or a district administrator missed 10 days of work, somebody would be looking for you. Somebody would notice. So you have to have systems in place that do that for kids. If I'm a kid and I've missed 10 days of school and no one from the district, the campus has picked up the telephone, sent a letter, sent an email, and gone to check on where I am, think about the message that that sends to that parent and to that student that, yeah, I'm a student, but no one is even looking for me. And that is a shift in the culture of our district for the last 2 years, because prior to 2 years ago, that happened. No one looked for the kids. They were just absent. And so now we have plans in place that we don't allow that to take place. It doesn't mean that all the kids come to school. Our average daily attendance is still in the upper low 90s, which, you know, overall isn't phenomenal, but for our district, it's such a huge improvement in such a short amount of time. So those are the things that we're doing, and we hope that you're able to take some of this. We're more than willing to share what we have and our pain points and just work with you all to improve your attendance.
For us, Ms. Wilson and Ms. Graham, is there, most of you guys have been asking questions. That's great. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask if the time permits for us. But if not, our presentation is over. Hopefully you guys learned from it.